Hey guys, welcome to the Big Ten Week 7 preview. We're on the other side of the season. The five-star zone. I'm Rico Beard. That's Harold Shelton from the Big Ten Network. And I mean, Harold, this is how you know we're midway through the season. Basketball media days coming up soon. So, man, we're going to keep this thing going for a while. But right now, we got Big Ten Week 7 preview. And in order to do the preview, I want to go backwards in time for a little bit for the biggest upset in the Big Ten this year. Raise your hand if anybody saw UCLA beating Penn State. I didn't, and even when you saw the score flash up on the screen, it was one of those, okay, but UCLA is going to turn it on, and I've fallen for that type of clickbait before. Oh, okay. Ohio State's down 10-0, and then they come back and win, 50-10. UCLA never trailed in this game. Nico Iamaleava, 5 touchdowns. Now, it's interesting because Harold, when you look at his stats, he didn't blow it up. Like, he had 5 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 2 passing. He passed for like 166 yards. What happened in this game? Was it – I'm going to go – let me backtrack. Did Oregon beat Penn State twice?
It certainly looked like it. And I think what was so alarming for me was that's a game that Penn State doesn't lose under Franklin. Like, they don't lose to unranked teams. They don't lose back-to-back games. If anything, it's all, we hear all the stuff about Franklin in big games and how he struggles. But like, they had won 34 in a row against unranked teams. They had won, I think it was 15 in a row on the road against unranked teams. Like, those are games where they figure it out, they get it done. They hadn't lost back-to-back games in 4 years. And then to go out there and lose the way you did, like you said, never led in the game against a team who never had a lead all season before last year.
Right.
They got a lead. And they got punched in the mouth early. UCLA goes right down the field and scores. They do the surprise onside. It's 10-0. And Penn State's like, oh, wait, whoa, what's happening here? And they could never fully get back in the game. A couple of times to get it to 7, but then couldn't get a stop. The defense was the problem. And we could talk about the offense all we want, but that was supposed to be a vaunted Penn State defense with a ton of dudes back. And that UCLA running game was able to do whatever it wanted. And we saw Nico break off a bunch of big runs. They ran for, I think it was 269. They had the ball for 39 minutes. So, UCLA just basically played keep away by being able to run the ball. They were able to protect Nico because he wasn't, a sitting duck in the pocket going back to pass over and over again. They were able to just run it right at Penn State. And kudos to young Neuheisel for dialing it up in a few days and getting it done.
The man didn't know how to work a headset. I'm blown away. And that's why I got to thinking, man, did Oregon put such a beat down and break Penn State's spirits? Franklin had to come out there and admit, guys, I understand the whole me and the big game thing. And it's bad when you got to have that come to Jesus moment. And that was the coach. That wasn't me. It wasn't you. It was him. I know the narrative. I hear. I got people. I got fans. You guys let me know. And then to go out on the West Coast, because it's normally, okay, East Coast to West Coast, it's always that watch out. And we're going to talk about Michigan going out to USC later on in this. But I figured this was safe. This was UCLA. Look, I would say Penn State has the perfect bounce back game. You're hosting Northwestern, but I guess my biggest question for Penn State, did that break their spirit? How do you bounce back from that? Because UCLA's loss, unless something weird happens, kind of took you out the college football playoffs. If you're tied with somebody, first thing they're going to do is hold up, but you lost to UCLA at UCLA in front of tens of fans.
Yeah, I think at this point they probably have to run the table I don't see a 9-3 Penn State team getting in with that kind of loss, like you mentioned. Now, running the table means you win in Columbus. It means you beat Indiana. So if you have those two wins, that might be enough to cancel out that one loss. And then the other one is Oregon at home, double overtime. People could accept that. But without both of those, I think they got a really, really hard time making the playoff, especially as you see what's going on around the country. The SEC's loaded. Notre Dame slowly creeping back in the picture.
Well, here's the thing. Notre Dame was probably one of the happiest teams because Notre Dame, I guess their biggest game will be USC. That's it. Other than that, they're not playing any more ranked teams. They beat USC. They're going to have a 10-2 record, but it's going to be a 10-2 record with like 8 in a row. So, they got the brand. They won 8 in a row. They'll backdoor their way into the playoffs. They're sitting up there happy, like that's one less team we got to worry about because you're right. For Penn State, you have to run the table. You have to beat Indiana. You have to beat Ohio State. And who would have thought UCLA under a brand new coach, and then the other coordinator leaves during the week, and they would give Penn State a worse game than Oregon, who's number 2 in the nation. This year's college football. I can tell you there's 12 teams that can win the national title. And I can make a case for 12 teams, and I'd be right all 12 times. But Penn State, their work is cut out for them. Now, they got Northwestern. We don't expect another letdown, do we?
I'd hope not. If that loss didn't get your attention, I don't know what does. And that's a pretty veteran locker room. And you got senior quarterback, 2 senior running backs, senior defensive ends. This is a team that had the most returning all-conference players from a year ago. So you would think that this wouldn't turn from 2 losses to 3, but I didn't think it would turn from 1 loss to 2. So
I'll say this. You lose to Northwestern, and James Franklin needs to walk around with his own block of ice to sit on because I cannot see Penn State fans just being – this is an ultimate meltdown. And it's not because necessarily Franklin. It's because all of those guys came back from Singleton to Allen to Aller. We're coming back to win a title. You saw that with Ohio State. Heck, you saw that with Michigan.
Yep.
This is the antithesis of that. I could have made money in the league. Like, what do we do? Because I got to wonder, if you're Franklin, how do you keep these guys together? How do you keep them focused? Because right now it's one of those, Nick Bosa type, Chase Young. Hey, maybe I'm just going to go ahead and I'm injured and I'm going to sit out for a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean the rest of the season. You saw that with Will Johnson last year. Michigan wasn't good. Will was injured and kind of sat out the final 7 games of the year. And, how do you if you're Franklin, how do you rally your troops to say, guys, we still got some things to work on. Don't quit on me.
Well, I think the chances with Ohio State and Indiana in front of you and the fact that that's a month from now, you could try to build some runway to get to that game or get to those 2 games back to back. Because, technically, if you win those 2 games, when it comes to tiebreaker scenarios and all of that, they would have them. And so you're talking about trying to make a Big Ten championship game again. And if you have the head-to-head with Ohio State, if you have the head-to-head with Indiana, you certainly could be in the mix. You'll need some help. But say Indiana loses to Oregon and then you beat Indiana, you got the head-to-head with a tiebreaker. If you beat Ohio State loses to Michigan, then you got the head-to-head with them too. So you can still pitch that, hey, we still got a lot to play for. There's still a ton in front of us. We might not control our own destiny like we did a week ago, but there's still a lot out there to play for. And we can still get this thing turned around, but it's got to start with that run defense. And I know we're talking about Northwestern, but they're 5th in the conference in running the football. That's the offensive struggle for the most part, but that's the one thing they do well on that side of the ball. So they got to get that fixed.
I can only imagine what the plane ride was like flying back. Just shock. 5 hours of just staring blankly ahead, like, what the heck just happened? And at the end of the game, it was like, you guys realize they're not going to punch you the ball. They're just going to run it at the back of the end zone. The punter is standing there, and I'm yelling for the Penn State, like, hey, special teams, hey, go. He's eating the clock, and they're just like waiting for him to kick the ball. Like, he's never kicking this ball again. It just looked to me that they slept on UCLA. They came in ill prepared, and man, it's what every, I think, Big Ten coach is going to put up on the whiteboard and say, this is why you can't ever sleep on any opponent. I don't care who it is. Penn State was favored by damn near 25 points, end up losing by 5 points. So, yeah. Now, flip side of that, UCLA, did they unlock some type of a cheat code? Is this the UCLA? Is this the Nico Iamaleava that we all were hoping to see? Or was this a flash in the pan? Because they're traveling to East Lansing. Now, it's a noon kickoff for them. So, a 9 a.m. body clock for UCLA. Michigan State coming off horrendous special teams themselves. Did UCLA unlock something, and are they now going to be playing the role of spoiler?
So I am curious to see now with how Michigan State responds that you have this UCLA offense on film. Because I think Penn State didn't really know what to expect. New offensive coordinator in there. It looked completely different than what they had done previously. So I do think there's an advantage there, at least for Michigan State. It's like, okay, now we see what's on film. We see they've used Nico a lot more as a runner with design runs. There was a couple times they took some shots, but like you said, I mean, he only threw for like 170 yards. It wasn't like he was airing it all over the place. He was most effective as a runner. So I think Michigan State's just going to have to be disciplined in their run lanes and try to keep him in the pocket, make sure he doesn't scramble and get out of there, because Penn State didn't do a good job of that. And next thing you know, he's sprinting 60 yards down the sideline. And that's absolutely what you can't afford if you're Michigan State in this game. And, they did a much better job last week getting pressure on the quarterback. UCLA's offensive line isn't very good. So that's an opportunity to get some more pressure again, see if you could put it together back-to-back weeks. And I know we'll probably get into a little bit more Michigan State and consistency and lack thereof here in a bit.
You know what? We're here right now because we might as well just talk about it, because this team is so frustrating to watch as a State alum, because it was a dime store version of the 2013 Big Ten championship game with Ohio State. Team runs out, scores 17. I think basically each team had three. It was three runs in the game.
Yep.
Except for it was Nebraska. It looked like they had it done. And all of a sudden it clicked, and man, it looked like Michigan State was going to come back. And then all of a sudden, two guys bump into each other on a punt like the Keystone Cops. They fumble, and then Nebraska just takes the game over. You see Childs and Nick Marsh on the sideline. They're getting into it. In a sense, they passed it up. Look, I get the passion, but I would tell them the same way like earlier in the year when Underwood was going after Haynes. You got to know that the camera's always watching you. It's going to look bad. Even though you can be best of friends, be roommates, doesn't matter. You shouldn't be arguing on the sideline, but I don't know. Something in that game, it was so many inconsistencies. I mean, Ashton Lepo, you get beat. You're looking like, Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone with your hands over your head. And something happened on that play, Harold. Look, I don't know, but after that play, Aiden Childs, he got knocked back. He went back in time to last year. And then he started making horrific throws and overthrowing wide open guys by a foot, leading to interceptions. And just you saw a lack of trust where he just said on the one drive, they got the interception. It was a 47-yard drive, and I think he accounted for 40 yards of it on the ground. I don't know. The defense showed up. All of a sudden, the defense looked great, and they're getting sacked. They had a 1.5 sacks the entire year, and then on one drive, they end up with 3 different sacks. I mean, one, the referee didn't see Jalen Thompson rip off a helmet, but I mean, but the special teams, the punt block, I had to go back, Harold, and count. Did they have 11 people out there? because that's something you see in a video game. That's something you see in a movie. The guy, literally, he could have just snatched the ball and just ran in the end zone. He didn't even have to knock the punter over, but he did. If you're Jonathan Smith and you're looking at this team, look, you needed to win one of those road games, whether it was USC or whether it was Nebraska. You won neither. You had good showings. You had positive things to build upon. But in the end, you took 2 L's. What does he tell his team with this UCLA team that, let's face it, everybody thought this was the easiest game that you had on your schedule? Not anymore. What does he tell his team about this UCLA game?
Well, I think overall, I don't know what to expect week to week when I watch this team. And I think that's probably been the biggest issue so far in a year and a half of watching them is that, you think, okay, this is going to be Aiden Childs. He's taking a step. Okay, now he throws 2 picks. All right, we know the defense isn't going to be very good. Okay, now they come out and then they get 5 sacks. But then they give up a ton of big plays. Like they'll go, the first 2 drives look really bad. Then they lock in for 5 or 6 in a row. And then they give up points on their last 4 drives. Like you just don't know what you're going to get week to week, sometimes half to half when you watch them.
Right.
And I think that's, for Smith, who has been, a slow build program builder, you at least want to have some tenets in your program of, okay, we know we're going to run the football. We know we're going to do this well. We're going to do this well. Even if we don't have the talent, we know we're at least we're going to be a blitz heavy team. We're going to be a run heavy team. We're going to be a pain to deal with. And, I think back to last year where, they come off the bye, they beat Iowa. They look great doing it. Childs, looks amazing, puts it together. And then you don't see that for the rest of the year.
No.
And then you come into this game, again, Childs, and maybe the hit has something to do with it because I know he did complete 6 of his first 9, finished 3 of his last 14 with 2 picks. So maybe that hit did have something to do with it. But, again, we were like, oh, there's got to be an Aiden Childs-led offense. And then they move it better with Milivojevic as the backup. And you're like, I don't know what this team is. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to watch week to week. Will the defense be better than it's been? Like, will they continue to get pressure? They got pressure last week. They didn't get pressure the first 3 weeks. Like,
I don't either. And here's the thing. And just to show that it's not just me and Harold, their best victory, what you would say, is Boston College, right? The double overtime game. Spartan fans leave the Spartan Stadium feeling good about themselves. I know you know everything, but you know how many games Boston College has won this year? 1.
4 game. That was it, right? Yeah.
1. They're 1-4. Your best victory,
right? That
Boston College, that victory ain't looking so sweet now. It's just like, okay, so you haven't beaten anybody, and now, like I said, in my world, if you even remotely want to sniff a bowl game, you cannot lose this Saturday.
No.
Everything's to your advantage. It's a 9 a.m. start for UCLA in their body clock. It's homecoming. I don't think you want to lose homecoming in front of the fans. I just don't, because at that point, man, the Boo Birds will be out. The Vultures will be circling. There's 2 games you never want to lose at MSU. That's homecoming, and you don't want to lose when you play Michigan at home. You just don't want to do that, because now on the flip side, you win, they'll love you. Heck, you beat Michigan, they'll give you a 10-year contract. Ask Mel Tucker about that. That's how let's face it, that's how he got his deal. Because they knew, okay, we got something and they didn't. It is off the field stuff. But you're right. I look at this, and there's no consistency. Whether one game it's okay, the defense was there. Okay, this defense is not there. Okay, you got a run game. You got a passing game. No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, I mean, the one consistency was the special teams and the punter and the kicker, and then it until it wasn't. You're right. I don't know what to expect, but they're sitting there and at what, 3-2?
Yeah, and if you win,
you got 7 games. I guess if you're Jonathan Smith, you got to find 3 wins out of the next 7 games, and they will not be easy games. But somehow or another, I don't think this season can end with you not being in a bowl game. Even if it's just a low-level bowl game, it's practices, it's something that you could tell your team, we took a step forward. We were 5 wins last year. I thought that they could get to at least 8 wins. Right now, your goal is to make it to 6. That's it. That's how I see it.
No, I agree. And you got to win this one because the next 2 games, you're going to Indiana. We see what they've been doing to people. And then you get Michigan at home after that. So if you happen to lose both of those, now you could either be 4-4 going into that final month. But if you're 3-5 and you need to win 3 of the last 4, which includes Penn State and going to Iowa and going to Minnesota, like that's going to be tough to get there.
Well, and we could touch upon it. I mean, because the thing is, the reason why I think he has to build is because with the new one-time portal, I think this is where you're going to have to sell your kids. No, guys, this will be good. Like I said, we'll talk about the one-time portal later. Let's get to another game. The game that I think is probably the biggest show-me game, and that's Indiana going to Oregon. This is a show-me game. This is okay, Kirk Cignetti, I'm Googling you. I want to read what you can do. You have handled your business at home. You have handled your business. But it's feast or famine with Indiana. Either they win big or they lose big. Okay, well, you're going to Oregon. You're going to Eugene. It's going to be a 3:30 game. I'm anxious to see what this Indiana team is about, if they're really legit, if they're really taking that next step, and to see what Dante Moore in Oregon, because for me, this is Mendoza, this is Moore, this is a Heisman kind of a playoff game where winner probably is the lead, is right up there with Carson Beck for the Heisman.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, I love the Indiana stats where, they haven't done this in forever. They haven't done that forever. And this is another one of those games. I don't think people thought this was going to be a top 10 matchup before the year started. I mean, if you look at how Indiana looked against Old Dominion, where they're giving up 200 yards on the ground and, they actually dropped a couple spots. So they were in the low 20s in the rankings in week 2. And now you see them up at 7, just goes to show how good Kirk Cignetti has done there. I mean, we expected Oregon to be here. We expected them to be a top 5 team, but I don't think we expected either one of these quarterbacks to be what they were. I do think they were probably both underrated coming into the season, which made both teams underrated. And now we see that right now they probably are both top 3 in terms of, a Heisman consideration. For me, it's up front, though. I mean, we saw Indiana completely control the Illinois game up front, both sides. They ran it when they wanted to. They got 7 sacks. Against Iowa, not so much. It's a couple 4th downs. They got stopped in the run game. They needed Mendoza to win the game with his arm. I think Oregon's got a better defensive line in Indiana. So maybe they fixed something in those 2 weeks where, they did some self-scout and figure out what went wrong. If they're going to have Mendoza, drop back and find dudes in that environment to win the game, I think that's a really tough ask. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think that's a really tough ask. I think Oregon is just overall a better team on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think that's one of those games where eventually the better team wins out. But Indiana, they got to survive that early punch, though, because we saw last year against Ohio State, we saw against Notre Dame.
Right.
They got overmatched early, and it started to slip away. And
that's why I said they're feast or famine. They're beating you down, or man, they are swimming uphill. And yeah, we'll see. Like I said, for me, it's Mendoza and Moore. I want to see which one in a big time pressure game can go out there and get it done. Now Moore, he went into the whiteout. He went into Penn State. And at that point, I'm like, okay, that to me, that put him ahead of everybody else. Mendoza hasn't changed. Because when you went on the road, it's just, I've always said, winning on the road feels like you won a game and a half.
Yep.
Especially if you could sit in the home team's crowd packing before the game is over. It's a sense of satisfaction of knowing this place emptied out, and it emptied out because of me and what I did with this team. So, Yeah, you're right. I want to see how they handle the defense, and it's amazing. The Oregon sent 9 players to the league on defense, and you couldn't tell. I mean, they replenished well. They got this thing going, landing. I mean, I think this is just he's got that program out there humming.
Yeah, and I think my biggest takeaway after they beat Penn State was they're turning into Ohio State. And what I mean by that is every year they're going to be a top 10 team. They have a top 2 or 3 roster in the conference every year. They're going to have a top 2 to 3 recruiting class every year. They're going to have a great quarterback every year. And now they're going to win the games you expect them to win. Like when they lose a game, it's big news. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we've seen Michigan be really good. We've seen Penn State be really good. But they have years where they go 9-3, 8-4, 7-5. You don't see Ohio State do that. Like they're down years 10-2. Like this is Oregon's kind of looking like they're becoming that type of program where they can look. They're the only one year after year that can look Ohio State in the eye, and not just one game a year. Because I know Michigan's got the win streak against them, but I mean from a roster construction, a overall 12-game season. Oregon and Ohio State, I think, are the only ones that can look each other in the eye and say, okay, respect.
Okay. Another game, to me, a sneaky good game, Nebraska and Maryland. Nebraska's traveling to Maryland. They just come off of the victory over Michigan State. Maryland still in shell shock, being up 20-0, and somehow led Washington score 24 unanswered points, including 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. How does Maryland bounce back from this game and Nebraska on the road? Are they the same Nebraska team that they are in Lincoln?
Kind of what we were talking about earlier, like show me. And this is both teams have a chance to show me that you're different, because we've seen Maryland start fast, get into Big Ten play, have things go sideways. We've seen Nebraska start fast. Hey, everybody thinks you're great. You go on the road, lose a game that you probably should have won. So kind of like your Spider-Man meme, that's these two teams. I think Nebraska last week was a game they normally don't win when stuff starts to go the way it does, where you're up 14-0 and then you throw a pick, you get a bunch of sacks, all that stuff. Like you usually just stay in the tank and go further in the tank. And to their credit, they didn't. They were able to get out of it, and they had some help, but they took advantage of it. Right. For Maryland, I thought that this would be a little different. Having Malik Washington, having that defense get after the quarterback, but clearly there's still some things there. They can't run the ball at all, and I think that's going to be, arguably the biggest issue. If that Nebraska defense, which has struggled against the run, if they don't have to worry about it, and they can just sit back and have Malik Washington throw into crowded spaces, I think that could be a big problem. I mean, the Milivojevic touchdown pass at in the second quarter last week was the first touchdown pass Nebraska gave up all year.
So
it's a really good secondary.
I look at it, and the funny thing about it, Washington did all of this comeback, and as you say, because they couldn't run the ball, they were punting. Maryland didn't turn the ball over. It wasn't like, oh my God, they melted down. They just couldn't kill the game. They couldn't run the clock. They couldn't. It wasn't like, oh my God, Washington went out there and threw 2 bad picks or they fumbled it. That's what made the game so impressive from the Washington standpoint, where they just didn't quit. Okay, we got this. And then before you know it, you could just feel Maryland like looking at the clock, like, can we get this thing sped up to go a little bit faster? And they end up losing. And Washington, outside of Ohio State, ended on their signature kneel down. We're just going to go ahead and hop on the plane and fly back. So, all right, let's talk about, to me, the must-watch game that I want to see, because talk about show me. This, to me, is another show me game. It's USC hosting Michigan. 7:30 at night. I'm trying to think. Is that an NBC game?
Yeah, NBC.
That's one where I feel like I'm going to find out a lot about these teams, and whoever walks away, I think it's like, okay, they're both are teetering on just being legit. Both have a lot of legit things, but I can't put them in that classification with Oregon, with Ohio State. I see some things for Michigan. It's going to be Underwood going back on the road again, but he's going up against, in my opinion, a defense very similar to what he saw at Oklahoma. USC's defense, I mean, they got some NFL dudes out there. But I think the best part of this game is going to be strength on strength. It's going to be the Michigan defense going against the USC offense. That's what I'm here for. I'm leaning a little bit towards USC right now because I think going the other way around, I think the USC defense is a little better than the Michigan offense. They got Justice Haynes, who gets a lot of things done. But if that defense can take him away, I don't know. Because Bryce and the drop passes and coming out there with the red hot cooked balls and the receivers just can't handle it. I don't know. I don't know if they'll be able to. Haynes would have to have a monster game, in my opinion, for them to stay in there. But once again, if Michigan's defense and can do what they do, I said this is a game to me, Harold, first 1 to 24 wins.
I can see that. I can certainly see that. And I think there's way more at stake for Michigan than SC because USC, they still got to go to Notre Dame. They still play Oregon. They still play Washington. So even I think their playoff hopes certainly took a hit when they lost to Illinois. And then if they would have won that game, you got a top 20 matchup here. And then there's way more juice in terms of the playoff and everything. And they could still stay in the conversation with the win, but they still have way more work to do. If you're Michigan, you get through this, you'll be favored most likely in every game going into the Ohio State game. Now you're talking 10-1. You're talking, hey, we can get back in the playoff. Last year was just a fluke. We got our quarterback in here now. Now we got a chance to go ahead and get back to where we believe we belong. And so I think there's a ton at stake for them in this game when it comes to that. Just on the field itself, the USC defense, I still think there's a lot of playmakers over there, but I was concerned that Illinois controlled the line of scrimmage against them. And Illinois is a team that has not been good running the football at all. And they were able to run for 160 or so against USC. And then again, maybe some of that was the travel, the body clock, all that stuff. It took a while to get going because, they were down double digits. They were able to create some turnovers, get back in that game. And we know Michigan can turn the ball over. So, as we know, USC, they're big play everything. Big plays through passing game, big plays in the run game, big plays on defense in terms of sacks, takeaways, tackles for loss. That's what they live on. And so I think both teams also like to shoot themselves in the foot. So I think whoever can play cleaner has a really good chance to win this game. If you're Michigan, I think you have to make USC drive the length of the field. It can't be the big plays. It can't be Mekhi Lemon going up top and it's a 75-yard touchdown. It can't be Waymon Jordan breaks the tackle and goes 75 yards. It's got to. Do you
think? Hold on, real quick. So, do you think Michigan and they're just going to Wink Martindale is just going to keep doing what he does, and they're just going to constantly bring the blitz? Because if you do that, it's feast or famine. You hit home, and man, you putting them in third and long. You miss, and that's 60 yards the other way.
Mm-hmm. I just don't see. I feel like Michigan's going to do what they do. Like I haven't seen anything that shows me differently. At least on defense, I haven't seen anything differently that shows me that they're not going to be the aggressive, get pressure as much as possible, try to confuse Mayava. They lead the conference in pressure percentage. So I don't see them going away from that. I think they're going to try to confuse him. We don't know exactly how it might be. Like it might be, hey, we're going to show 7 and we only send 5. We might show 3 and then, we send 2 dudes late. Like I think they're going to try to confuse them as much as they can. But I'd be shocked if they sat back and tried to, let USC matriculate. So like to your point, it's strength on strength. USC loves big plays. Michigan loves creating big plays on defense. But if you do too much of that, You might get beat over the top with
I was about to say, it's unfortunate. Michigan can have a bunch of big plays, but unless they get into turnovers, you blow 4 coverages.
Yep.
That's 28 points.
Yep.
And now you swimming uphill. Now you turning the ball and you're looking at 19 and saying, hey, I need you to go out here and save us on the road. And look, he's had
that leads the conference and drops.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, some of them are just, I feel bad for them because it's just like, man, I did everything but put the ball in your hands and you just flat out dropped it. Now, he does have to work on his touch, but yeah, this is the game I'm looking. I circled this game 2 weeks ago. It was strength on strength. It was big play offense versus big play defense. I think it's going to be very entertaining, and I'm glad it's not a noon kickoff. I'm glad it's at night. It gives you a chance to just sit back and watch at the end of the night. And kudos for schedule makers of not making it at 11 o'clock at night again for the people in the state of Michigan. So at least it's a decent time. I ain't got to be up to 2 o'clock in the morning watching this game. So before I get your stats, it looks like they came out with the portal. One-time portal for football was a 15-day window from the 2nd to the 17th in January.
Sounds right.
Is this going to change anything? Is this good? Is this bad in your opinion? Because for me, I like it because it gives you a chance. If you're serious about the portal, you either go in there and you're not. Having the 3 different portal windows, it's like you really didn't know who your team was until summer camp, because you would have the people leaving after spring practice. Like now, if you're in spring practice, you're on the team. Yep. Unless the coach leaves, because I think they still have the clause in there. If your coach leaves, your portal window opens up for 15 days. But I like it because it gives you a little bit more consistency. To me, you won't be able to play the portal game of let's just see what's out there, let's shop around, because you shop yourself around. In my world, you're giving up your scholarship. I'm going to go out. If Harold, if I see your name in the portal, I got to replace you. Now, you may want to come back. And at that point, it's one of those, if your spot's there, but if I found somebody I think is better who wants to be here, you're not there. I like the fact that it's just a one-time thing, just for consistency. If you're a coach, going into the spring, this is my team. I don't have to sit there and placate to somebody to make sure they stick around and do what I can start working on what I want to do next season in the spring.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And I think when you think about last year and you think about the playoffs starting in December, you're over here, like if you're Ohio State, you're Tennessee, you're Indiana, you're Notre Dame, you're playing Penn State, you're December 19th, 20th, you're playing and you're trying to host portal recruits. Mm-hmm. While trying to plan for a playoff. Like, that's crazy to me. Bo Prabula for Penn State leaves during the playoff run because of the portal. Like, if he's on that team, maybe they beat Notre Dame and they're playing for the national title because he was a big goal line runner for them. And in a game that was really close where a field goal could have turned into a touchdown and changes the whole game. Then you think about the spring portal, and you had so many coaches come out and complain that they didn't even want to have televised spring games because they're worried coaches would try to poach them in the portal based off what they saw. And so now you get rid of all of that stuff. You have your window. The season's basically over except for the 2 teams that are playing for the national title. You'll have a full 15 days for the other 130, and you probably get a week for the other 2 teams that are playing for it. I think this is a really good thing. And again, there's accountability here. You can't just do I'm going to shop around for more money and see what happens. You're on the team and you're with us or you're not.
Right. And I like it too, because you got to be serious about it because you got to enroll in school. Yep. So if you seriously going to hit the portal, you can. Now, if you're just trying to see who could pay me the most money, you could end up losing out. So that's the other reason is, there's a window. And, hey, kid, I need you to – you are going to be here to play school at least until you graduate or you leave. You got to get in there early. So, no, you're right. There was no spring game because if I was a coach, I'm not putting any of my fringe players out there to be showcased for somebody to say, hey, we'll take you as a running back. Since they got you as their third string back, we'll make you our second or first string back. So I like it. So I'm with you on that. So, all right, what you got stat wise?
So there was a couple. Again, I know we talked about Indiana, and if they can win this game, how historic it would be against top 5 opponents on the road. They are 0-47 all time. So if they are able to win this game,
write this down. 0-47. Okay, top 5.
Yep, top 5 on the road. They've never won one. The last time they beat a top 5 team, period, was 1967. That was a road. That was Indiana at home. Indiana against Purdue at home. So you're talking about completely uncharted territory if they win that game. And I know we're talking, we didn't talk Ohio State, Illinois, which I think could be somewhat interesting.
You know what? You're right. We didn't. And you know what? If you got a few minutes, we can.
Sure. I was going to throw some stuff out there, but we could talk about it in here. So that's cool.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I think what's getting lost with Ohio State is just how good this defense is and how Matt Patricia he's really got this thing rolling down there. I think it helps that, to have the talent you have, and they've got very cerebral players that are able to, break it down, and they're still able to play really fast. But they've allowed 3 field goals on 8 red zone drives, no touchdowns.
Yeah, that's the impressive thing.
They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown yet. They've held every opponent to under 10 points. So if they do that again, it'd be the first time they've done that since the 70s. And if Ohio State's had some really good defenses, some really good players, but what they're doing right now is, stuff we haven't seen or heard before in decades. And you're talking about a team that's won 7 straight games against ranked teams. We would criticize Ryan Day for not being able to win big games, and they won 7 in a row against ranked teams. Now you play Illinois. This is kind of, hey, you got to win this to make the playoff. If you do, it changes everything in the conference, and it changes everything for them. They're a team that, has done well in really close games and have been able, if they're able to keep it close, they've been able to find ways to win. But the last time we saw them against a ranked team, didn't quite go so well.
Now it is at Illinois, so maybe that can help them out.
So that should help them out. Crowd will be electric. It's the first time, I think, since the 90s that they've hosted a Ohio State team while they've been ranked as well. So, you could argue this is the biggest home game they've had in 35 years or so. So this could be a lot of fun. Ohio State on the road, we saw them against Washington. It took a while to get going. Maybe that was body clock. We don't know. But if it's sluggish and Illinois is able to keep this close, I want to see what happens, because Luke Altmaier, he's got 5 wins against ranked teams. Only Carson Beck's got more last couple of years. So when the chips are down, he's been able to make plays and win games.
No, I'm looking at this, and if you're Illinois, this is where Altmaier and this is where Bielema can put their stamp on this program, because something happens with Ohio State, as you said, the defense and Matt Patricia. I guess I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe he's found his calling in life. Maybe it's not in the NFL. Maybe it's in college, because you get to the red zone and they suffocate you. You're not scoring a touchdown. Period. You're going to have to score a long touchdown or get a pick six or scoop and score. You're not going to score a touchdown against this defense, and it's just fascinating because you're right. He's got them, and Ohio State has some good defensive coordinators, but this defense just looks, and then look. I don't think that they got the typical, like back in the day when they had the Bosa brothers and they had Chase. I don't see that guy on the defensive line, but collectively as a whole, they're getting it done. You got downs, but it's like they're doing it, but they're doing it collectively where there's almost no weak links to this defense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, Caden Curry's been a really good player for them up front. He's kind of quietly led the Big Ten in tackles for loss, but a lot of that came in one game against Washington. So to your point, I think it has been collective. It's a bunch of dudes who waited their turn behind the Tyleek Williams, the JTTs, the Jack Sawyers. Like, it was all those guys who stayed in the program, didn't leave, got better. Spotlight's on them now, and they're playing well, and they've got a really good coordinator, kind of, pulling the strings on everything, getting it going. So it's been really impressive to watch.
All right. Was that part of your stats? I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I forgot all about that game. Only because Ohio State just kind of going out there and just
taking care of business.
It's just like you don't really stand a chance against them. But you know what? Last week showed anybody can do it.
That's for sure. I guess if we wanted to go back out west for Michigan SC, that's kind of where I think I would end it in terms of the stat. USC doesn't have a number next to their name, which is a good thing for Michigan. They won 20 of their last 21 road games against unranked teams. So they've come out and they've gotten it done. And when I was doing a little research on, the teams traveling 3 time zones this year, road team actually 4-2 when having to travel 3 time zones in the Big Ten so far. Surprisingly, one of the 2 losses was Penn State at USC at UCLA, because otherwise they would be 5-1. But what's been interesting about it is that first half, you could tell it takes them a while. They're only averaging 7 points a game, but in that second half, they're averaging 20. Was that?
Who, Michigan or USC?
The road team, when they travel
it takes them a while.
3 time zones, it takes a while for them to get going. So early on, that first half, they're only averaging 7 points and giving up 12. Second half, they're scoring 20, giving up 12. So we saw it with Washington, we saw it with Oregon, we saw it with Ohio State. Really slow, sluggish starts. They start to figure it out, start to wear teams down, win the game.
Harold, that's why we keep you around, man, for stats like that. I appreciate your time, man. We'll break this thing down, see what happened this week, and we'll preview next week's games. I appreciate everybody sticking around, watching us here on the 5 Star Zone. Keep liking and telling your friends about it. For Harold Shelton, I'm Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone.